Welcome to the Australian Digital Circus! My name is Steve. I'm an Australian digital artist and a huge fan of the Amazing Digital Circus. Now, Gooseworks, the writer and director of TADC, is British-American, but did you know that the show itself is animated and produced down under by Aussie creatives? Glitch is a Sydney-based studio. So I thought it would be fun to make an alternate universe and draw the cast's human forms as they appeared outside of the circus, but as Australian citizens. But we have so many characters to cover and not enough time. So I will be splitting this AU up into 2 videos to cover the main cast. Today I will be drawing
with a Zooble and the Pomni
and
Jax!
So with all that said, let's not waste any more time and get right into the artwork. First up is everyone's favorite jester added to our beta testers, Pomni. Pomni is of course our lovely main character whose point of view we follow throughout the show. It makes sense then that she would hail from the most main character of Australian cities there is, Sydney, New South Wales. I chose to make Pomni Chinese Australian. Australia is a wonderfully multicultural nation and all of my designs, not just Pomni's, will reflect that. I made Pomni Chinese specifically from Shanghai for a few reasons. Firstly, I am not immune to the Asian Pomni propaganda, even if I did do my best to avoid letting other artists' designs of the cast influence my own. Secondly, Pomni's makeup with its white base, dark blush and clear eyebrows is reminiscent of traditional Chinese makeup styles from the Tang Dynasty, Han Dynasty, and from Peking opera performances. Finally, my third reason for making her Chinese over other Southeast Asian ethnicities was because I think that it adds a layer of depth if Kane took away both her ability to speak Mandarin and the Shanghai dialect of Chinese, all for the sake of his Chinese room joke in episode 7. And that's definitely in character for him. And maybe my secret fourth reason was that I just wanted to draw Pomni in pretty Chinese traditional attire. Now, onto the design itself. Honestly, I really struggled with Pomni. Aside from Gangle, who you'll see in the next video, she was the character who gave me the most grief. I'm still not entirely satisfied with her, but like any good designer, I can justify it through characterization. As this is an Australian AU, I gave her warm weather clothes. While New South Wales is not as hot in the summer as Queensland or the Northern Territory can get, it still gets pretty humid there, so I dressed Pomni accordingly. I wanted to communicate her silhouette from the show, so I gave her one of those cute puffy sleeve button-up tops to replicate the arm puffs of her jester outfit. I made it a lighter red, and that is a reoccurring theme with Pomni's design, dulling down her bright colors to make her look less like a cartoon character. I also gave her denim shorts, a staple in any Aussie girl's wardrobe, and slip-on shoes with socks to evoke her shoes in the show. Her hair ended up being the most important part of the design. I used it to try and communicate her jester hat through the twin tails at the back of her head, and the band of her hat turned into a hairband. I included her bangs from the show and made the rest of her hair rest at her shoulders, which ties it all together. Because Pomni's family is from Shanghai in this AU, I used 2 Buyao hairpins to keep her twin tails in place. These are meant to replace the bells at the end of her jester hat tails, which are called liri pipes by the way. I threw in the butterflies to represent her connection to Kinga, and the flowers are there to look pretty and for the green of the leaves to connect to her matching jade bracelets. I gave her those to mimic the circular cuffs of her gloves. Also, according to Chinese traditions, wearing jade is good luck, as it represents virtue, kindness, wisdom, justice, civility, sincerity, and truth. I feel like all of those traits represent Pomni in her actions in the show. She's always been the cast member who fights for the truth and treats the others with a sincere sense of kindness. Physically, I gave her dark brown hair like she has in the show, blue eyes, which I imagine she gets from wearing colored contacts, and a pale skin tone to match her avatar. She's also short and has a round face and features to evoke her avatar's cartoonishly round face. Now, I hear you asking, why would she wear any of these clothes? Well, this is an AU and it's set before the circus. In episode 1, Pomni is written to be a very reactive character, rather than proactive. We know she felt unsatisfied with her accountant job, enough to do urban exploring anyway. She's lost, unsure of who she is or what she wants until she begins her character arc over the course of the show. So Pomni does not have an established fashion style, Most of what she wears is gifted to her, other people projecting their idea of who she should be onto her, which we see in the show as well. Her bracelets and hairpins were gifts from her family, and the easiest way to wear 2 hairpins like those is to have them hold up twin tails, which give her a childish look, tying back to her insecurity of being treated like a child. She's torn between masculine and feminine styles, practical and impractical clothes, and where she ends up is this awkward grey area outfit, because it is only later, through her time in the circus, that she grows her strong sense of self and identity. Anyway, I also drew Pomni wearing traditional attire, specifically a hanfu. I imagine that in this illustration, she has just attended a gathering for New Year's and is calling her parents, who are away on a business trip and weren't able to celebrate with her in person. Her traditional attire is based on her circus colors, and the buttons on her hanfu are meant to look a little like her liri pipes. I then drew Pomni eating an iconic Australian food. I picked lamingtons for her, the type with jam in the middle. Food decisions for the cast were mostly based on vibes, but lamingtons are 2 cakes that are held together tightly with jam or cream, and Pomni holds the cast together like glue. As for her job, I had to make her an accountant for Coles, which for any non-Australian viewer watching this, g'day by the way, is one of our 2 big supermarket chains here. She's from the Bondi branch because that's the only Sydney suburb I know, but as you can see, she's pretty unhappy in her job. She wears a nice red suit to work and she forgoes her hairpins in favor of more, and please imagine me doing air quotes here, professional hairstyle. I threw some space fillers into her character sheet that matched her vibe, an old video camera for recording her YouTube videos, and an abandoned buildings map, which feature real abandoned buildings in Sydney, plus a page dedicated to a mysterious CNA branded building. CNA had branches all over the country, which I'll cover more when I do Kinga in part 2. But for now, all you need to know is that Sydney is not CNA headquarters. I wasn't too sure what to put in the top right-hand corner of the character sheet, and for some reason, the solution I came up with was to draw one of the things I'm really not that confident at, which is animals. I thought it would be fun to assign each of the cast a native Australian animal that matches their vibe, and draw them holding it. So for Pomni, I went with an eastern pygmy possum. They're native to New South Wales, and they've got these adorably big eyes that match Pomni to a T. They are so cute and so small, but they are more capable than they look. They are proficient climbers thanks to their prehensile tails, and the little guys serve as pollinators to our native plants. And with that said, that is Pomni, our Sydney-based urban explorer. And now on to our next cast member.
Do you have any of that stupid sauce left?
Now for everyone's favorite mismatched cash piano. I knew immediately that Zubul would be from Melbourne. In my opinion, it's the most trendy and artsy city that Australia has to offer. I chose to make Zubul a Filipino-Australian. Ironically, Gooseworks has joked about Jax being Filipino before, but I only saw that after I had already decided to make Zubul Filipino and Jax a different ethnicity. Anyway, Zubul is Phil Oz. So half Filipino, half white Australian. They have a Filipino mom and an Aussie dad. I chose this ethnicity for them for a few reasons, but it was mostly aesthetic based, as I wanted to incorporate traditional Filipino geometric tattoos and patterns into their design, while also giving them blue eyes. Plus, I thought that maybe their mixed heritage might tie into their struggles around identity that we see discussed in the show. This would be in addition to their struggles around gender, because I think Zubul's parents might be a bit more conservative and not very understanding of their child's identity. As for their design, Zubul was one of the easiest characters to do. They came to me in a flash, and I immediately drew them down as fast as I could. So fast, I drew them way too big at first, which is ironic given that Zubul has the biggest model out of the cast. I gave Zubul a puffer jacket, quintessential to any Melbourneite, but I had them wear it with one sleeve off to mimic their singular pink angel wing from the pilots and allowing me to show off the tattoos on their other arm. More on those later. I gave them a crop top with a teal necklace meant to evoke the circular loop on their chest in the pilots. Their skirt is a traditional Filipino garment called a tapas. It's a type of wraparound skirt with different woven patterns specific to different regions of the Philippines. Zubul strikes me as the type to explore their cultural identity through their clothing, and I also found it was a good way to tie in their predominantly yellow body from the show. And I made sure to include lots of their orange dots from their body in various sizes and patterns all over the skirts. I also made Zubul an amputee. I wasn't originally going to do this for fear of making their design too complicated, but it is Zubul, the toy box character, and I think it makes sense for them. Zubul always walks with a limp, no matter what parts they're wearing. I used the Elite Blade by Blatchford as a reference for Zubul's leg, which not only evokes their spiral leg part from the pilot, but it is also something that would be comfortable to walk with. I still gave them a cane though, colored the same deep purple as their right leg, for extra comfort and support, with a keyring that is reminiscent of their eye, the softball regulation-sized one. As for their physical appearance, I tried to give them quite angular facial features to mimic their triangular head. Their hair is meant to evoke their cyan headpiece, and their black and white clips match their other headpiece. I gave them pink and purple eyeshadow to match their eyes in the show, and finally, some earrings also reminiscent of their various headpieces. Zubul's tattoos were so fun to design. I knew immediately that I wanted to draw from their design in the pilot episode and give them a winding dragon and a crab to represent their red corkscrew and crab claw right arm. I also used their tattoos to represent their Filipino heritage. The dragon on their right arm is Bakunawa, a serpent from Filipino mythology, creator of earthquakes and eclipses. He ate 6 moons and continues to try and eat the 7th, our moon. Aside from the fact that it's just dope as hell, I figured Bakunawa, with its ferocity and rebellious nature, suited Zubul. Also, maybe it's a stretch, but in the show the moon loves Cain and Zubul hates him, so maybe there is some symbolism there. I threw in some swirls and flowers to tie in some of the pink from their design and pull the whole tattoo together. The crab at the back of their right hand is Tambano Kano, a gigantic mythological crab living in a hole at the bottom of the sea. No, not that one. Tambano Kano is a creature from Filipino folklore that controls the waves and the tides, and every time he opens and closes his eyes, lightning flashes, which is why I added some around the tattoo. Tambano Kano is the child of the sun and the moon, 2 very different celestial bodies, which ties to Zubul being not only a mixed-race individual, but a non-binary individual as well. Someone who exists as the combination of 2 worlds. On their other hand, I designed a much more traditional tattoo design for them, but utilizing yellow as well as black to match their glove on their left hand in the pilot design. I included some sun imagery to match the moon imagery on their other arm, and various other geometric, traditionally inspired designs. By complete accident, one of them ended up looking like a cross, which links back to Benny, the inspiration behind Zubul from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. In the video game, Benny kills himself on a cross, which is pretty neat because that was a complete accident on my part. Because their main outfit incorporates multiple elements of traditional Filipino attire, I chose to make Zubul's alternate full body drawing be more of a comfortable outfit instead, that they might wear when dealing with gender dysphoria or when they just aren't going out. I gave them an oversized shirt tucked into old yellow pants with punk style patches related to the show and Zubul's personality, as the punk scene in Melbourne is pretty big. I was originally just going to do random shapes on their shirts, but I thought it would be fun to put Elaine the bounty hunter there instead, as a nod to Gooseworks' earlier work and the likely inspiration behind Zubul's avatar. Besides, Elaine kinda gives Aussie vibes herself, doesn't she? For their iconic Australian food, I picked shapes for Zubul, for obvious reasons. Zubul is made up of shapes. For those of you who don't live here, shapes are little biscuits that come in different flavors. You can eat them like crisps. Zubul's space fillers are a colorful tattoo gun and a coffee cup. It's a common stereotype that Melbourneites can be very particular about their coffee, and though I can't speak to whether that is true or not, I do think that Zubul themselves would be a huge coffee snob. For Zubul's Australian animal, I had to go with the platypus. When Europeans first encountered the platypus, they sent back a taxidermied specimen to British scientists, who were so shocked by the mismatched biology of the creature that they assumed it was a hoax. But no, the platypus is entirely real, and each of its strange quirks, like its ability to lay eggs and its venomous ankle spurs, help it to survive and serve its purpose in the ecosystem. Therefore, it's perfect for Zubul, a character made up of mismatched parts, who is no less capable than any of the other cast members. Finally, for every other character, I incorporated some kind of ID card to communicate their occupation, but neither of Zubul's jobs call for an ID card, so I instead drew a photo of them and their friends at the bar they work at. I wanted to communicate that Zubul is loved and appreciated by their found family, and why they miss life outside the circus so much. They have people waiting for them back home after all. I won't go in depth on their friends' designs. One of them is based on an IRL friend of mine, and the man next to Zubul is loosely my interpretation of what Benny might have looked like before Am got his metaphorical hands on him. And that's Zubul, our Melbourne-based fashion icon. Now onto our final cast member for the video. Just a quick note before I start on Jax. His ref sheet includes a depiction of a dead rabbit, including blood. It isn't hyper-realistic, but it is there. I also reference pictures of First Nations individuals on screen, and I was not able to verify if all of the men photographed are still alive. Viewer discretion is advised.
Oi, mate! I'm an Australian extremist!
Now for everyone's favourite little laugh boy, and our first rural-based cast member. In this AU, Jax is based in the Northern Territory, specifically on the edges of Alice Springs, one of the closest towns to Uluru. I chose for him to be rural, as hunting and handling guns in general is a big part of his character, so having him based in the outback as a ranger made sense. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I chose to make Jax a First Nations Australian, specifically a Wilpuri man. I understand that including and incorporating respectful and accurate representations of Indigenous cultures and First Nations people in Australia is of the utmost importance, and if you have any questions as to why I've made this decision, I have written a more detailed disclaimer in the description. My design choices are always to include, respect and celebrate all cultures that I represent through my artwork to the best of my ability. I had a clear story in my mind for Jax. Not quite as clear as Zubal's design, but still very concrete. I knew immediately I wanted him to come from the Northern Territory. It's often considered to be our hottest and most intimidating state climate-wise, which I thought matches his vibe very well. This is one of the biggest reasons why I made Jax First Nations, as a significant portion of the population of the Northern Territory is made up of First Nations people, especially in regional areas, and I wanted to portray the state with accuracy and appreciation. In this AU, I see Jax as being the son of a Wilpuri woman running a national park a little bit outside Alice Springs, whose husband passed away shortly after Jax was born. I think Jax feels stifled by the isolation of his rural environment, and that leads to him having a complicated relationship with his home, his identity, and his mother. In episode 7, when Ragatha talks about her mother, the camera cuts to Jax, who looks away, uncomfortable. I personally interpret this as him thinking of his own relationship with his mother, because I don't feel like he cares enough about Ragatha to empathize with her. Anyway, Jax's mom isn't like Ragatha's. She deeply cares about him and loves him, but she's always so busy running the park that Jax is often alone. He has a mob, but they are separated by distance. They meet up for special events, but in terms of his literal house, it's just Jax and his mom. So he gets pretty bored and spends a little bit too much time on social media, making him become a very cynical person, insecure in his masculinity. I think he lashes out at his mother because he feels she is trapping him here. He wants to move, but deep down, he feels bad about leaving behind his mother and the land which she taught him to feel a connection to. All this leads to a sarcastic, lonely young man who feels caged in. Now, to be clear, there is nothing wrong with living in a rural area. I think dedicating your life to caring for the environment is beautiful, especially if you hold a cultural connection to that environment. But that life isn't for Jax. And instead of communicating that to his mother like an adult, he lashes out at her and acts disinterested in the world around him. What Jax doesn't understand is that his mom is not trying to force her son to do anything he doesn't want to do. She just thinks having him work as a ranger at the park and getting out into the sun is healthier for him than staying inside all day on his phone. And it's not like she knows otherwise, because he just doesn't talk to her about why he's unhappy. So with all of that said, I love how there is so much beautiful, intentional irony in his avatar being a rabbit. Rabbits are invasive here in Australia. Jax doesn't feel like he belongs in his own culture and in his own land. Plus, as a ranger, he is constantly having to shoot rabbits to protect the park, which is why I later filled some of the extra space on his character sheet with a dead rabbit, a metaphor for his self-destructive tendencies in the show. Please remember that this AU portrays my own interpretations of who the characters could have been before they entered the circus, and all my design choices were based upon the information that I currently have access to. Now, onto the actual design. I really suffered with Jax's hair. I wanted it to be reminiscent of his bunny ears, but I also wanted it to read as a boy's hairstyle. So it took me ages, but I eventually settled on twin tails, which matches Pomni for all of you funny bunny shippers out there. They are braided back into his head and highlighted with purple, because Jax thinks it makes him look cool, as if he was from the city. Also, yes, his hair does feature cornrows. I did kind of forget about his thing with corn when designing him, but in my defense, I feel like Jax only developed trypophobia when he was actually in the circus, as a result of Ribbit's abstraction. I also think he was never as cruel or unkind in real life as we see him act in the circus. I strongly believe that his actions in the show, though inexcusable, are a trauma response and are not decisions that he would have made outside of the circus. Anyway, I gave Jax deep brown eyes bordering on black to match his big black eyes in the show, and tinged his teeth slightly yellow to reference his avatar as well. To mimic his gloves, I gave him tattoos on both of his hands. On his left hand, I gave him a collection of chains to symbolize feeling both trapped in a rural area and actually being trapped in the circus. On his right hand, I kept the chains but added some eyes, a reference to his brushes with abstraction throughout the show. For his outfits, I gave Jax a shirt with First Nations symbols relating to his time in the circus. The big circular symbol means meeting place, pertaining to the circus itself. Then we have symbols for the rest of the cast. One horseshoe shape with 2 lines meaning man, representing Kinga, 1 horseshoe shape with no lines meaning person, representing Zubul, and 3 horseshoe shapes with 1 line meaning woman, representing the 3 girls of the circus. The squiggly lines at the bottom have multiple meanings, but in the context of this artwork, they represent blood, a nod to the darker side of the circus. I gave him similar dungarees to the show, but messed with the color to make them more believable to real life. They're meant to look like miners' overalls, as there is a big mining community in Alice Springs. I imagine Jax would try to fit in with the young men working there by wearing similar clothes to them. However, most of them would be FIFO, fly in, fly out, so he likely wouldn't form any kind of concrete connection with any of them. For practicality, I gave Jax hiking shoes, as the Northern Territory can be quite rocky, and the last thing you want is to step on an eastern brown steak and have it bite you through your shoes. I made them purple and styled them so that they resembled his feet in the show. With his main outfit locked in, I moved on to drawing him in traditional attire. The reason I chose for Jax to be Wilpuri and not say Arranta, which is the other major indigenous group living in the Alice Springs area, is because of their traditional attire. As you can see, their ceremonial attire is top heavy and is a relatively close visual match for Jax's silhouette. Furthermore, I was able to use the white paint of their attire to outline his avatar's smile, big eyes, and dungarees. I chose Vegemite as Jax's iconic Australian food because it's bitter, salty, and an acquired taste. If you aren't Australian and are watching this, please do not eat Vegemite in spoonfuls from the jar like this. It's not how you're supposed to eat it. I just thought it would be funny if Jax started eating Vegemite straight out of the jar for the shock value at first, but he ended up gaining a taste for it accidentally, and it slowly became a habit of his. For Jax's Aussie animal, I had a lot of choices. I finally settled on a kangaroo. Male kangaroos are actually quite tall and aggressive, plus they have long ears like Jax does. From what I was able to gather from my research, the Wilpuri view the land as being safeguarded by emus and kangaroos, the animals on our coat of arms and Australia's Kuruwari, ancestral symbols left behind from the dreaming. Also, the Wilpuri consist of 4 corresponding patrilineal groups of families, one of which is the Wuriri, which means kangaroo. Even though I'm not doing names for this AU, I definitely think that Jax would be a member of this particular group, and I added a red wristband, the color of the Wuriri, to his ranger uniform outfit to symbolize that. Milpiri is written on the band, as these wristbands are usually given out at that particular biennial festival. Anyway, I drew Jax holding a baby kangaroo because an adult one would not fit in frame. And that's Jax, our Alice Springs based Outback Ranger. Well, looks like that's all the time we have for today, superstars. Please do stick around and subscribe for the next part of the series. I'll be covering Ragatha Gangle and Kinga next and revealing a little more about the nefarious CNA in this alternate universe. And if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave a like so I can know whether or not to continue beyond the main cast. I have ideas for Calfmow, Scratch, Ribbit, and Queenie as well, so please leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Just remember to always be respectful to one another. But now it's time for the steam train to leave the station. Farewell!